Welcome to 3Blondes1Battle. How are you, Bobby?
I'm good. How are you doing, Nikki?
Good. So today we're doing it today without Tara because we had to move it to Tuesday, but she's got her infusion on Thursday. Um so yeah, she's doing that Ocrevus infusion. You just got done doing yours, didn't you, or no?
No, mine got canceled. I was on the this morning actually. I was on the phone with the VA for 50 minutes and then they're like, "We cannot connect you." And then it just hung up on me. And I was like,
No.
this would happen. So I called back and about 20 minutes later, I finally got someone. And they were, because I talked to my neurologist, the nurse, of course, right? Because she does everything. And she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I sent your stuff in on the 22nd to the VA. But mind you, the infusion center is within the same hospital as my doctor. So it's not like it's an outside provider. So, anyways, I called because it's always a miscommunication majority of the time. So I'm like, I'm just going to call the VA first before I give them a call because I'm like, I can always get it sorted out a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So they're like, we didn't get any authorization from your doctor's office, but this authorization code, which is brand new, they're like, if it's within your doctor, your infusion is covered. Like, that's the code for it. So I'm like, what code were they using? So I'm waiting to hear back from that. So I'm a little frustrated at the moment because I'm way past due.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you at so it's every 6 months is the infusion. So are you at what month are you at?
I'm approaching my 7th month.
Okay.
So over a month.
So do you feel that like before you have the infusion coming up, it's like that feeling that you guys get that are you feeling that?
So you know what's crazy? So
What?
3 years ago is when I started taking these vitamins, right? And so they call it the crap gap. And I would always, it feels like this heaviness, like you can't really function, like your fatigue is like out of control. And the weirdest thing ever since like taking these vitamins, my crap gap has been such a night day difference. And so my crap gap isn't as like severe as it was. Like I can feel it, but it's nothing like the first 3 years.
Yeah.
Years being on Ocrevus, which were like my roughest years, but the crap gap always got worse. So that's something that's kind of new with me. Like I kind of like feel it, but it's nothing as bad as it used to be. So
did you do like some research? Like what do you think that is? Like what? So what do you think is
that I'm finding is how, because so my vitamins are mentholated, okay? And the one thing that I'm finding when it comes to vitamin B's is like the nurturing with our nerves and like rebuilding that that nerve coding, right? But also that signaling, helping with your energy and mental clarity. It does a lot more stuff, right? But I truly feel it's because it's mentholated. I feel them working. And when you start being consistent, because it's not like, and as you know, you can't start something, especially if it's holistic, you can't stop it because sometimes it can be years or 6 months or until you start noticing. Because you're vitamin deficient, you don't realize it during the time until you've been on it a while. And so I feel when it comes to filling in those nutrient gaps, like your minerals, vitamins, right? Every day, you start noticing things, your mental clarity too. Like I still have like brain fog but it's nothing like my old normal used to be. Does that make sense? But I notice when you start filling in those gaps, you start noticing, like for me, I don't have crazy urges of foods like I used to. I feel a little bit more in control in a way. And that's one of the things, like when you're missing certain things, like you're going to struggle in another area because kind of getting fulfilled. And it's like, I kind of just broke it down. Like, I know we're going to get into wellness, but I kind of just broke it down into simplicity. Like, since teenager, I've done like the fad diets, right? Watching important people in my life do them, struggling mentally when it comes to food, working out. I'm too busy for this, and
Yeah.
living with MS since I was 20. It was kind of like my wake up call of, and it's always like a reminder of your aha moments. You're not always perfect, but then when you kind of have that realization, especially like for me this year, for my wellness, I've kind of just gotten tired of old habits that were my healthy, and it didn't do much good for me in the long run because I kind of threw everything out the window because it just wasn't sustainable for me long term. And since August, I kind of just broke everything just simple. And I'm already down over 10 pounds. And like, I feel better, like my joints feel better. And
well, so going back to, but when I'm talking about like, have you researched this? What I mean is like, why do people feel like crap in that gap, like that 1 month gap?
So usually what I found when it comes into the gap is the Ocrevus, because it's killing off your B cells.
Oh,
so that production usually it starts for me. It would start around almost 4 months. Almost 4 months, I would start noticing that it was kind of like tapering off. Like I wasn't in that I feel so good kind of category. It kind of just like falling down. And so that's when like your B cells start producing more and more and so that's why what I found with the whole crap gap. Other things too could be, my infusion is always around the winter time, and I used to live in a very place. So my MS would really exacerbate during the winter time, and so it kind of compounded more. So it could be like intensified more of my symptoms, what I was feeling. And so that's kind of, I don't know when it comes to like summer, depending where you live, that's really
right. Yeah.
But yeah.
And what Bobby's talking about is that's what she does for a living. Like that, like you're a rep for a company that sells methylated, vitamins and minerals and so so if you guys, if there's any listeners that are taking Ocrevus, or just in general where you're like, I don't know what vitamins, definitely reach out to Bobby because that's like her subject matter expertise. So that's so interesting to me. Wow. That makes total sense. And again, like you have to like keep, especially if there's, every 6 months you have the infusion, you can't just start taking these supplements, for a couple months, like to really kind of pay attention. And that's what MS really forces us to do as human beings. Like we have to pay attention to what we're doing and over time, how we're feeling. We can't really kind of do, my style is, start something and then and start feeling better and then stop it. But I start multiple things all at once. So I don't really know kind of which
ones.
Yeah. So don't do it my way. Because that doesn't, that costs a lot of money. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, the amount of money I spend on, just different things that I've done in the last 20 years, it probably could have been a lot less had I just done one thing at a time for a couple months. But because of that instant gratification that I have, like, I want to do it all. But it's kind of like a marathon, right? Like MS is like a marathon, not a sprint.
It's so
yeah, but going into the winter, I definitely, or at least fall, like here, depending on where you live. I mean, there's snow in Colorado right now, so they could be in the winter right now. But I think as it gets cooler, I'm noticing, with the symptoms with heat, I just really, I just can't be outside. Like it fatigues me so much being, in the UV rays. that I can't really be outside that long. But then in the winter, it's almost like I'm like the Tin Man, where I'm starting to like see yeah, how do you even describe how we walk in the cold?
You're just very stiff. Like you're
Stiff. Yeah, which makes it like, as you're going upstairs or as you're walking up the curb, it's like those are moments where you really have to pay attention in the winter, because you might have to mentally think like, okay, especially if you've got like a right leg or a left leg that has drop foot, you really have to think to yourself, lift like higher, like it's almost like you have to coach yourself in your mind, like, okay, I'm approaching that curb, like lift that leg. Like you can't just like kind of nonchalantly
like,
walk.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to pay attention. And it's not so much pay attention to the curb, it's just pay attention like mentally what you're saying to yourself, because it really does help when you're like, okay, go, or like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, 1, 2, 3, lift. I mean, obviously don't be a weirdo and say it out loud, but I do think that helps, don't you?
Oh yeah, because the thing is too, there is a such thing called muscle brain connection. And
Yes.
like when people have injuries, they help, the physical therapists help retrain your brain to reconnect with
Mm-hmm.
that part of your body. And
Mm-hmm.
even people who, amputees still deal with what is called phantom
Yep.
um,
Pains.
pains. And it feels like they
Mm-hmm.
still have a foot or, or their
Yeah.
whole leg, depending on, their
Yeah.
but it just go I feel like it should go to show us how powerful our mind is and how trained
Mhm.
our mind is and how we
Totally.
have a way of implementing that training too, and we don't always have to let our bodies kind of run with whatever, our
Mhm.
emotions. Like it's all connected, and I never really understood that until my pain got worse throughout the years. And I've
Yeah.
always been someone like I can deal with pain. Like I've had my thumb slammed in a horse trailer door and sprained ankles, and you know working with cattle and horses and being kicked and thrown off into fences. And like I have a pretty good high pain tolerance, but I never
Yeah.
realized the type of pain until living with MS. And sometimes it's really hard to describe what that is, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to nerve pain, um, because everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yeah, what you're talking about is acetylcholine, is that neurotransmitter that stimulates your muscle. So what's funny is that is literally what the optimal body fitness program is with David Lyons. So that's why the workouts every day, it's all around producing acetylcholine. And so actually focusing on the muscle that you're using, like you can't be doing these workouts, they're only like 20, 25 minutes. You cannot have music on, you can't have somebody talking to you. You've got to literally be thinking about the muscle that you're working, and it's just one muscle a day. So like today was chest, and like there's certain things that like you could be using your triceps or even your shoulders during this chest, but if you focus on using
Yeah.
your chest, it leads to a more contracted muscle, and in turn, better results. But I do think with MS, like it's funny that we just kind of talked about just walking up a step in that same concept of lifting.
And I think the one thing when it comes to workouts is relearning a different mindset around working out, because like what you're describing, that's what, people who take their fitness seriously, that's what they think. Like
Mhm.
whatever muscle group that they're working on, they're focused on that single area. Day-to-day people, they just go work out like, okay, I'm gonna lift some
Yeah,
weight.
I was gonna say most
I
people
mean,
don't. They have their
yeah,
headphones in, they're like hardcore charging music, and it's like,
yeah. Then
but
that's
that's fine. You know what though? That is fine. If we
yeah,
didn't manage MS, you and I would probably still be working out like that. Like there is nothing wrong
you know
with
what's
working out like that.
yeah. Well, when that's how I've always worked out, and it's
Yeah.
because, like high school, we had a weight room, and so a lot of places they don't really have those anymore, which
Mhm.
I feel like needs to be very involved in teaching just basic health, like learning
Yeah.
how to work out, because I think that's the scary part, right? Is like, I don't know how to work out. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be judged for this. And that's the beauty thing. We live in a technology world where you can do it from your home. I like working out from home. Uh,
Always.
I
Yeah.
have the time to go somewhere. I don't have
Yeah.
the time to carve out this amount of time to go somewhere. Like I need something at my house. Plus, I
Mm.
can wear whatever I want to wear. I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about, working out. And at
Yeah.
home, because I get hot. So like I'm in my shorts and my sports bra. I would
Mm.
not be wearing that at a gym. That's just who I am. I don't
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable doing that. Uh,
Yeah.
but at my home, I feel more comfortable. So I think, and you probably can test this too, like you'll be more willing to do something even if you're not going to be great at it in the beginning,
Oh,
right?
totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really what that program is about. It's also about the neuroplasticity. And so making again like the brain to muscle connection. And there are certain connections that obviously are, let's just say in layman's term, broke, right? Because the myelin sheath is destroyed. Now the connection from your brain to, let's say, your leg, that nerve pathway is no longer available. And that's why you cannot physically do certain things. But neuroplasticity, if you really focus on what you're doing, that creates another pathway to the same function, because there's
Yeah.
billions, isn't there billions of nerve
Oh,
pathways?
yeah.
It's like insane. And so, but it's like a forest, right? Like you have to clear a path to, there's a path already there that everybody takes, and damn it, that's broke now because of MS. But there's still other pathways. It's going to be harder because
Yeah.
you have to create it. And so that's really what neuroplasticity is. You've got to focus on that movement, but it's also kind of like it's slower, like not results wise, but then
Yeah.
actually like physically slower in
Yeah.
the movement. So there might be a contraction, like halfway you're holding 2 seconds, then all the way up, then back down, you're holding 2 seconds, then all the way down. Or
Yeah.
it might be, some of his workouts, it's you're holding the contraction at the top for 4 seconds, or you're holding the contraction at the bottom. It's just based on kind of what you need. And so I definitely, like, it's definitely possible. I mean, there's been people that have been paralyzed, or lost all function, told they can never walk again. And guess what? They walk again. Why? Because they imagine it. They do specific things that to the average person, they'd be like, what are you doing? Which
True.
goes back again to doing it from home because nobody's watching you. And honestly, like, I remember last summer, no, not like 2-3 months ago, but like the last summer when Dylan and Talon were going to the gym, I'm like, I might as well just like do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
The things that I was doing, I'm like, oh my God, people are gonna, and again, you shouldn't care what people think, but we're human. And I'm like, ugh, people are, and especially with an ego of people that have already done stuff like hardcore stuff, and now they're not doing hardcore stuff. It's like people are gonna look, they're gonna think like, what in the world is this girl doing? Because it doesn't look like everybody else.
Yeah.
But again, we're not like everybody else. We're trying to create new pathways. And it works. And I'm only 11 weeks in, so we'll see what it's like in 2 years.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing. It's consistency. And it doesn't
Mhm.
that, it's like a straight narrow, like, oh, I'm cruising. Like, no, like you're going to have ups and downs and like
Yeah.
plateaus, good highs, and then you're right back
Yeah,
down lows. And because you don't know
totally.
what the next day is going to bring, you don't know how, day to day life, the uncontrollable things that you don't have control over, which does, have an impact on
Yeah.
your do the best that you can. But I
Yeah.
I feel when it comes to working out, there's a lot of fear behind it because you don't want to look silly. You don't want to make,
Mhm.
and I was actually talking about this on my social media the other day, and it was talking about how I'm too scared to work out because I don't want to make my MS worse. And that was me for 6 years in the beginning of my diagnosis. Like right when I was diagnosed 6 years later, I was terrified to do anything because I'm going to make my MS worse. And okay, when I work out, yeah, my body temperature is going to go up, and, I feel certain things, and oh my gosh, like I'm triggering it. And so like I would stop it. And that's not really I've realized over time that that's not true. Like, in what you're saying, we live differently. We have damage that has been done. And usually when your body temperature gets up, depending, weather, summertime, you're going to feel that damage. You're going to feel the numbness, tingling, type of pain, whatnot that you're experiencing. And it's kind of letting your body, like, letting you know, like, oh, okay, but it's learning your normal. Like, okay, when I work out, I feel numbness and tingling, but I also feel like my pain starts to increase. But I know my threshold now.
Right.
But I've had to learn that over time. And that's the only way that you can figure it out is actually doing it. Like,
so you don't push through it.
No. So I won't push through it if it comes to the point that I'm like, that's not a good pain. Like, that's a pain that is not my normal.
Right.
Like, my breaking point. Yeah. Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. Remember that girl that was running? She had MS and she made it all over the news, all over social media, like 7 years ago? And she was running a marathon and she got to the end and she literally collapsed because she couldn't.
And her dad was there.
Yes. Do you remember that? And it's like, and everybody's like, yeah. And it's like, no, actually.
Was she in high school? No.
I think she was young, yeah. But I just think that's silly. I feel like all of us do it at the beginning. Let's be real. Like, I feel like that was the last time I ever ran, because I literally lost all function of run, like, because I pushed it. And so I do think depending on where you're at in your diagnosis, I don't think that's wise to do, because you never know the inflammation or kind of what you're doing to that spot in your nervous system or on the nerve. You're kind of pushing it to the point of what? I mean, if you start feeling the numbness like you do, if you start feeling it, it's like, okay, this is my max, this is my limit, ego aside, I need to.
And it does come down to ego, right? Like, we don't want to like fail. Like, one of the things, like, for myself, I don't want to look back on my life and be like, man, I should have tried that, or man, I should have with that. And I've always had that since I was young, even when I got into the military. But over time living with MS, it got to the point where I was like, okay, am I willing to stick with this? And if it gets to a point in my life, will I be okay with whatever the aftermath of that is? And it does come down to hard conversations that you don't want to have right now, but you have to think eventually time is going to pass and you are going to be at that point in your life. And are you going to be okay with wherever that you're at because of what you're doing day to day in your life? And so it's not fun, right? But it has to get to a point where, are you willing to take that step for yourself, or are you willing to be, or are you okay with dealing with the struggle day to day, and I'm not going to do anything because I just don't know.
Yeah, there's too many resources out there at this point for people to be like, I don't know what to do.
It's so funny that you say that, because I was actually talking to my husband about it, and I was telling him, we have so much information, but yet we don't know what to do. We don't know what to try, what to start, because we can't just like, okay, I found this, let's try it out. I'm going to stick with it. If it does good for me, awesome. If not, I'm going to go to the next one. But it comes down to, well, I don't feel like I have time. You do have time. It's just you're not at that point and make it a priority yet. Doesn't mean that it can't happen for you, because it can happen for you. But you have to, like, Nikki, that you're talking about with, your movements to working out, doing, David's program, your 11 weeks, is the most simplest things. But there's so much information, like, oh, I can be doing this complex thing. But should you be doing those complex things? Like, is that your reality? Can you stick with it? Like, if not, no, don't do it. Do something else.
Yeah. But I also think that, in that overwhelm, you need to realize, like, it would be wise to follow people that have already done what you're doing, or maybe that are in the same, like, that manage MS and have done it. And that's why I like David. It's like, well, he actually manages MS with this. So he he has the knowledge behind, well, his past. He's got the past, like his, accolades, but then he also manages MS. So I chose to follow him. Or Matt Embry, like he manages MS. And so I follow him. So I think in that world of overwhelm, it's wise to follow people that also manage MS, but are doing really well.
Yeah. And I think too, when you find someone who's doing really well with their MS, is like seeing, what they're doing, but also realizing where you're at and not setting an unrealistic expectation, and being able to decipher those people managing MS, because there's all types of people out there managing MS, and the type of, that mentality that they have after their MS, or, just sitting there like people just don't understand us and kind of just pointing fingers at people who don't have an MS, and that's not going to help you at all, and it's just going to weigh on you, and it's not going to do anything. But for me, I have a personality when it comes to wellness, working out. I'm a little bit more hardcore because I need that kick in the butt. Like I'm that person that needs a harsh reality check. So for me, someone who doesn't even have MSK, he has a heart condition, but that's David Goggins. Like, yeah, he cusses and swears, but he's someone that I can resonate with to like get my butt off the couch and get something done. So I kind of take, from learning from Matt Embry, like you've recommended, and like David, it's amazing to see these two men, which a lot of men don't live with MS. It's more women. And so to me, it's really fascinating to see these two men, different skill sets, right? And what they're doing. And to me, it just shows there's so many avenues that you can take, but both of them are approach of like very simple. Like
very simple,
complex, right? And I don't know. I just feel when it comes to taking care of yourself, like throwing out the high expectation that from like your old self, like you have to like let it rest and let it be, and turn around and walk forward, because we didn't ask for MS, right? But we have it now. So what are we going to do with it? Like, how are we going to? But I don't know. I just want to be just, encouraging, because I know when bad days hit, it feels like it's the end, and mentally you're checked out. I get it. I've had days like that. Yeah. But I just encourage you not to sit with it very long, because it's not going to do anything for you long term, right? Because every day now when I wake up, I'm like, man, like I'm alive. My husband's in law enforcement, so I kind of see a side of our world that gets very guarded. And so when I wake up now, I'm like, man, like what a blessing to be alive. Like, what amazing to be able to cook my kids breakfast this morning, even though my legs aren't functioning very well, but I'm doing it. It's not like a gourmet breakfast, but I'm making something,
Yeah. And hopefully they eat it, unlike mine. I like seeing it. It's like some things they have no clue. Like it takes a lot of energy some days. Like, some days I wake up and my legs are just like, oh, and usually it's because of the temperature. Like, let's be real. It was like so damp I woke up one morning. I was so
isn't it weird? When was it? Last week? Like we were having nice, like cool weather. Like and all of a sudden, like it got really warm, and I'm like, what is going on? Like this is weird. This should not be happening.
Yeah, yes, and it affects our legs. It's so weird. But anyway, going back to complaining about my teenager. Yeah, so some mornings like it's so hard to just make those couple eggs and like the toast and make them a little sand, and then he takes 2 bites, and I'm like, do you know how much energy that costs?
It's so funny. Like my kids, I've had and same with you since having MS, so I'm always talking to him about it. Like I don't hide it. Like I don't go in full detail, right? But they know I'm like, I'm not feeling good. You guys are gonna have to figure some out for breakfast, and they do. Like I usually have stuff like pre-made, or like I bought from the grocery store that we use on days that I'm like, I'm not feeling it.
Really? Okay, so what are those type of things that
So
are like pre-made?
So they have like great like breakfast options. Like they have like these mini like pancakes.
What company?
Huh?
What company did you say?
I can't remember. They're from Costco, but the
Costco.
ingredients are really great on them. I actually found them because my sister, she buys them for her son, and they're great. And usually I always have like hard boiled eggs, like already cooked. I usually
Made.
Sundays. So they have something like that. They have like a protein drink that they have, like vitamins, things like that, fruits. But I keep breakfast very simple. Like very simple. I don't
Yeah.
do cereals. I don't it's just a waste, and they are never full. So I'm like, it's a candy for breakfast.
Yeah, it really is.
Nothing.
Wait, what's the thing from Costco again?
It's in a clear bag. It has like pink on it. It's huge.
But what is it?
So it's just pre-made tiny pancakes. And so you just
Pancakes.
pancakes.
Oh.
Yeah. So they can have, something like that.
Is that in the freezer aisle?
Yes, in the freezer. Yep. They're brand
Huh.
new. I think they've been out maybe a month. Not very long. Maybe
Yeah.
2. They're pretty brand new to Costco, so.
Cool. Yeah. The problem is mine won't even like drink a protein shake. Like he's so picky. So I don't know. And like people that are listening there, if you're thinking like, well, if you would have started younger, oh, he was healthy when he was younger.
Well,
Like,
I would just get to the point like, okay, like, well, then I guess you're not going to eat. You're not worried about it, so I'm not going to worry about it. Like,
yeah, I know.
15? How old is he? 16?
Yeah, he's 50. He's
15.
months, little 2 months away from 16. So he thinks he's 17. So, but yes. Anyway. All right. Well, hopefully we've provided some value, a little entertainment, and I think we always end with, just remembering, regardless of what you're going through, if you have an attack or maybe you're like fearful, just every single day thinking of some sort of gratitude, what you do have versus what maybe you don't have. And that really changes the ball game for the day.
It really does. It does.
So we wish you all the best of health in the next week, and we'll see you next week.
Yay. Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.